Think the Wild West was just cowboys and duels? These rare photos will blow your mind.
Welcome to Eternal Moments. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start.
In 1978, in the heart of Wyoming, Dirty Jack's Wild West Theater offered more than just burgers and fries. A vivid, gunpowder-fueled Old West experience. Amid laughter, whiskey, and revolvers, waiters dressed like outlaws, and diners felt like they were part of a duel at dusk. It was half restaurant, half theater, where history and spectacle mingled with the aroma of barbecue. A corner where the spirit of the Wild West never died, it just changed the menu. In 1985, East Berlin was a mirror split between past and future, old socialist buildings colliding with the first signs of modernity. P. Zimmerman's photo captures that silent tension, where walls not only divided a city, but also two ways of seeing the world. Trabants still roared through the gray streets, while young people dreamed of colors they could only imagine. It was a time suspended between the rigidity of the regime and the desire for change that was already pulsing beneath the concrete. This rare 1915 photo unites two titans of American history, Theodore and Franklin D. Roosevelt, even before fate made them legends. The former, the hero of progress in national parks; the latter, the man who would guide the country through its darkest hour. In this image, the past and the future unwittingly shake hands. Two generations, one last name, and an indelible mark on American history. In 1877, at a dusty table in the Old West, Billy the Kid smiles under his top hat as he deals cards with his accomplices. No one in that scene could have imagined they were witnessing the making of a legend. This is one of only two authentic photos of America's most famous outlaw, captured in a rare moment of calm. Amid laughter, smoke, and suspicious glances, the myth of the boy gunfighter was already beginning to be written. In 1864, young Robert McGee, barely 14 years old, survived a Kiowa attack that left him with an unforgettable scar. He was brutally scalped and left for dead. Against all odds, he lived, and his face became a testament to the savagery and resilience of the Old West. Decades later, he traveled through fairs and shows displaying his wound to the public, a living symbol of survival. Behind his gaze, there was pain, but also the incredible story of a boy who refused to die. In 1895, after the bloody Canyon Diablo shootout, the outlaw, John Shaw, lay dead, but the Western tradition didn't end there. His companions, faithful to the end, served him one last glass of whiskey posthumously as a tribute to his life of excess and gunpowder. The scene, immortalized in a photograph, seems like something out of a saloon legend. A final toast to a man who lived fast, shot faster, and never knew redemption. In 1885 in Montreal, two worlds collided and greeted each other in front of the cameras. Sitting Bull, the legendary Lakota chief, and Buffalo Bill Cody, the showman who turned the West into a spectacle. They shared a history of battles, but also a respect forged in the history that united them. At the Wild West show, war was transformed into theater and indigenous resistance into a symbol. That photo captured something unrepeatable, the moment when native myth and the legend of the cowboy joined hands before a worldwide audience. Inside an old family hat box appeared this gem frozen in time. Selby High Street, circa 1914, as the young men marched off to the Great War. Between waving handkerchiefs and nervous smiles, no one imagined the abyss that awaited them at the front. Horses, uniforms, and lost gazes speak louder than words. It was the last day of innocence before Europe awakened amidst fire and mud. At the beginning of the 20th century, Holy Frog and Big Turnips, two Native American members of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, posed before the lens of pioneering photographer Gertrude Cassibier. Their faces blend pride, melancholy, and the paradox of representing their own culture as a spectacle. The photo captures the dignity of those who, amid applause and lights, kept the memory of their peoples alive. It is a silent but powerful image, where the indigenous spirit endures even within the Western circus. At the beginning of 1900, this indigenous mother holds her son in a hug that conveys strength and tenderness at the same time. Her eyes reflect the history of a people facing enormous changes and challenges, yet keeping their roots intact. Every wrinkle, every gesture tells stories of survival and love in a world that seemed to want to erase them. The image is a silent testament to the eternal bond between mother and child and the cultural resilience of Native Americans. In 1870s, few cameras reached the corners of the West, but when they did, families wanted to impress. This portrait is no exception. They proudly display their gigantic melons and a cow that, judging by the angle, seems capable of climbing the house. Between laughter and agricultural pride, the photo reflects the mix of hard work and humor that was common on the frontier. A moment where survival and exaggeration meet in front of the lens. In 1896, Zona Hester Shue and Edward Stribling Trout Shue posed like any happy couple. But the story behind this photo would be anything but ordinary. Zona would become the famous Greenbrier ghost, whose spirit would play a crucial role in solving a mysterious murder. The image captures the innocence and joy of a married couple, unaware that the supernatural legend of West Virginia was already stalking them. It is a tangible memory of a love that became part of a mystery that history has never forgotten. In 1927, Wyatt Earp, the iconic sheriff of the Old West, is shown far removed from the duels and dusty saloons, standing in front of a modern automobile. The photo reflects how the heroes of the past adapted to a world moving at full speed. Between his steady gaze and the gleam of the car, one feels the contrast between the Old West and the 20th century. It's a moment where the Old West and the 20th century meet before the camera. In 1960, Zeldendorf in West Berlin was a place of visible borders and palpable tensions. This sign, "You are leaving the American sector," warned of a divided world and the impending separation that the wall would bring. It captures the last winter before the city was physically and emotionally divided. A cold and silent image, it anticipates years of surveillance, daring escapes, and a story that would mark generations. In 1898, Denver was a city in the midst of transformation, where mine dust and train smoke mingled with buildings that were beginning to touch the sky. This panorama shows bustling streets, carriages and streetcars, and a skyline that barely foreshadows modern Denver. Every detail reflects the ambition of a West that was urbanizing, yet retaining its pioneering spirit. It's a glimpse into the past, when the city was young, bold, and full of promises to fulfill. In 1879, New York's Upper West Side was little more than a landscape of dust, horses, and rising buildings. The intersection of 84th Street and Broadway showed a city in full expansion, leaving the countryside behind to become a metropolis. The first buildings rose tentatively, while the sound of progress became increasingly constant. It was the beginning of modern New York, when the urban dream was just beginning to take shape. In 2010, Randy Guiaro bought a small photograph for only $2, never imagining he was holding a historical treasure. That 1878 photograph turned out to be one of only 2 authentic photographs of Billy the Kid and his gang, captured in a rare moment of calm. From a chance find in a thrift store, it was worth $5 million, a reminder that sometimes the most valuable history hides in the most unexpected places. On the morning of December 7, 1941, the USS West Virginia was hit by a Japanese torpedo at Pearl Harbor in the attack that would change history. This shocking photo, taken from an enemy plane, shows the exact moment chaos erupted over the American fleet. Columns of smoke, fire, and confusion covered Ford Island as the Pacific burned. It was the dawn of a war that would engulf the entire world. In 1930, an unusual scene unfolded above the monumental Grand Coulee Dam. A flock of sheep slowly crossing its concrete structure. Amid the dust and the roar of machinery, nature and engineering seem to meet in the same frame. The image captures the contrast between rural life and the unstoppable progress of the industrial age. Almost a poetic moment where the sheep challenged the grandeur of one of the most ambitious works of its time. In the early 20th century, George McJunkin, a former slave turned cowboy and self-taught archaeologist, challenged the beliefs of his time. In 1908, he discovered the Folsom site, where later evidence would be found that humans had arrived in America thousands of years earlier than previously thought. Although he died before seeing his discovery recognized, his intuition changed the history of archaeology. The photo shows him serene, unaware that his legacy would rewrite the origin of the continent.
In 1865, photographer Felice Beato captured this extraordinary image of a samurai in the midst of the Edo period, when Japan was still teetering between tradition and the imminent opening to the Western world. With his armor and steady gaze, he represents the honor and discipline of an era that was coming to an end. The photo shows not only a warrior, but a cultural symbol halted just before the change. It is a silent portrait of feudal Japan's last gasp. In 1961, young Konrad Schumann, barely 19 years old, made an era-defining decision to leap over the barbed wire to freedom. This photo immortalizes him in mid-flight, fleeing East Berlin to the west, as the wall was just beginning to rise. His leap became a symbol of courage and hope amidst division, a moment suspended in the air between fear and freedom. In 1980, at the height of the Cold War, the train depots of East Germany became a paradise for Western railway enthusiasts. While steam locomotives were already history in the West, in places like Saalfeld, Thuringia, they still puffed with smoke and nostalgia. Visitors crossed the border just to see them roar once more, like living relics of the past. It was a place where time seemed to stand still amidst steam, iron, and ideology. In 1956, the Munich Oktoberfest was an explosion of color, music, and tradition in a post-war Germany reborn. The tents overflowed with beer, laughter, and accordions, while visitors proudly wore their Bavarian costumes. It was a festival that celebrated not only drinking, but life itself, reunion, and hope. Those images captured the joyful spirit of a country toasting a new beginning. At the end of the 19th century, the Georgetown Loop in Colorado was a true marvel of railway engineering. Winding between impossible mountains, its tracks seemed to defy gravity as trains rolled over dizzying steel bridges. Tourists and adventurers traveled just to experience its daring, spiraling journey. It was the perfect symbol of human ingenuity, forging a path through the wild heart of the American West. In 1921, Bat Masterson, legendary sheriff of the Old West, posed alongside silent film actor William S. Hart in his office at the New York Morning Telegraph. Amid newspapers and dueling memorabilia, two worlds collided, that of the real West and that of the cinematic West. The photo captures the moment when history and legend meet before the lens, a unique encounter between a man who lived the frontier and another who immortalized it on screen. In 1918, September 6th, in Hazavant, France, Lieutenant Colonel William J. Donovan appeared in a photo that captured his grit and determination toward the end of World War I. Although he was then a brave officer on the front lines, fate would lead him to found the CIA, leaving an indelible mark on the history of American intelligence. The image reflects a man on the brink of legend, still in uniform, his gaze set on much greater challenges. A moment where the warring past and the secret future intersect before the camera. In 1892, a pile of buffalo skulls symbolized the drastic decline of these majestic creatures in North America. What were once endless herds were now reduced to stacked bones, silent witnesses to mass hunting and human expansion. The photo captures the magnitude of human impact on nature and the urgency of an ecosystem on the brink of collapse. A grim reminder of the fragility of life in the face of greed and progress. In the late 19th century, or early 20th, in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, couples enjoyed a picnic that seemed frozen in time. Amid blankets and baskets, laughter and knowing glances filled the scene as nature offered a refuge from urban life. The absence of a man, likely the photographer, adds a curious and human touch to the moment. It is an intimate portrait of everyday life where tranquility and affection are captured forever in a glass negative. In 1946, Willy Brandt, future Chancellor of West Germany, appears in this photo attending the Nuremberg trials as a journalist. His experience left a profound mark on him. He would later write the book Criminals and Other Germans, analyzing the devastations and wounds of the post-war period. After 12 years in exile, fighting against Nazism, Brandt closely observed justice for those responsible for atrocious crimes. The image reflects a man on the brink of legend, still in uniform, his gaze set on much greater challenges. A moment where the warring past and the secret future intersect before the camera.
In 1933, the last Tasmanian tiger, a species soon to be declared extinct, was captured. With its melancholic gaze and striped fur, it seemed to carry with it the story of a lost ecosystem. The photo became a symbol of the fragility of wildlife in the face of human intervention, an eternal reminder of what nature can lose forever if left unprotected. In 1908, a family proudly poses next to their covered wagon in Kansas, a symbol of effort, mobility, and hope in life in the American West. Their smiles and simple clothing reflect the determination of those who built their future through hard work. The wagon not only carried belongings, but also dreams of prosperity and survival. The photo captures a moment of family unity amidst the vastness of the prairie. In 1899, U.S. Army soldiers posed in front of their cabin in Dyea, Alaska, as frontier lookouts during the Klondike Gold Rush. Their mission was to maintain order while thousands of fortune seekers rested or prepared for the perilous journey to the Yukon gold mines. Amidst the snow and extreme cold, they represented law and discipline in a wild territory. The photo captures the tension and adventure of a time when the dream of gold attracted men from across the continent. In the late 1980s, East Berlin displayed an urban landscape marked by the rigidity of the communist regime and the palpable division of the city. Gray buildings, empty streets, and the constant surveillance of the Stasi reflected a controlled and monitored society. At the same time, there was a murmur of change and discontent that would soon tear down walls. The photo captures the tension of a city caught between oppression and the hope of freedom that was already approaching. In 1988, the streets of New York City showed a stark face of the city. Prostitutes walking amid neon lights and traffic, looking for clients while the metropolis never slept. The photo captures the harshness and everyday survival in neighborhoods where marginality and ambition intersected. Between shadows and shop windows, one perceives the daily struggle to stay afloat in an unforgiving environment. It is an honest portrait of urban life, unfiltered and unromanticized. In the 1980s, tourists posed next to a soldier from the East German National Volksarmee in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier in East Berlin. The scene combined solemnity and curiosity. The monument evoked respect for the fallen, while visitors sought to immortalize their time in the divided city. The photo reflects life under a vigilante regime, where history and propaganda coexisted with tourism. A frozen moment that shows the interaction between memory, ideology, and everyday humanity. In October 1881, Tom and Frank McClory and 19-year-old Billy Clanton lay after the famous gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona. They were killed by the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday in a confrontation that would go down in the history of the American West.
The photo captures the brutal outcome of the legend of the Wild West, where violence and justice were deadly intertwined. A somber moment that immortalizes a conflict that still fascinates and divides opinions about heroes and villains. In the 19th century, St. Louis was home to such curious inventions as this 3-story toilet, an urban device for accommodating many people at once in small spaces. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary building, but its structure was a true engineering challenge and certainly a challenge in terms of smell. The photo reflects the practical and sometimes extravagant ingenuity of urban life in the past, a humorous and astonishing glimpse into how cities solved everyday problems more than a century ago. In 1946, little Hans Werfel, just 6 years old, received a new pair of shoes, a simple gesture that reflected hope after the ravages of World War II. His smile and gaze show the joy of childhood, recovering moments of normalcy in difficult times. The photo captures the tenderness of an everyday moment, where such a humble gift holds immense value. A reminder that even amidst ruin and loss, life still seeks small rays of happiness.
In the 1920s, a policeman on horseback gallops down Tremont Street in Boston, captured by the lens of Leslie Jones. The image conveys speed, discipline, and the dynamism of a city in the throes of urban growth. Amidst buildings and pedestrians, the officer patrols the streets with determination, representing order in a rapidly changing world. It's a moment that blends tradition and modernity with the force of law in motion. In 1993, Mullah Omar, future leader and founder of the Taliban, was captured in one of only 2 known photos of his youth. The image shows a man still unknown to the world before becoming a central figure in Afghanistan's contemporary history. His gaze and posture convey a disturbing calm, a harbinger of the influence he would wield decades later. A portrait that froze a moment before his name became synonymous with power and controversy. In July 2003, the hangings at the James T. Vaughan Correctional Center were demolished, closing a dark chapter in Delaware's prison history. Built in 1886 at the request of a death row inmate who chose this method, the barns remained as a silent reminder of legality and death. The photo captures the empty and silent structure, laden with stories of fear, justice, and controversy. A testament to how law and mortality collided in the same space. In 1954, a young Clint Eastwood, just 24 years old, was on the set of his first major film project, Universal Pictures' horror sequel, Revenge of the Creature. The photo shows him still far from stardom, with the youth and determination that would follow him throughout his career. It's a glimpse into the beginnings of a cinematic legend before his name became synonymous with cowboys, heroes, and masterful direction. A moment when talent was beginning to emerge in front of the camera. By the 1880s, Doc Holliday was already known as a gambler, dentist, and feared gunfighter of the Old West. A close friend of Wyatt Earp, his name was forever linked to the legendary gunfight at the OK Corral. The photo, now colorized, captures his intense and enigmatic gaze, a reflection of a man who lived between the law and gunpowder. A portrait that encapsulates the aura of mystery and danger that made Holliday a legend of the American West. In 1990, Erfurt Thuringia offered a candid look at the end of the German Democratic Republic shortly before reunification. The streets, buildings, and faces reflected daily routines under a regime that was already showing signs of crumbling. The photo captures a city caught between nostalgia, uncertainty, and hope for the future. A moment that documents the transition of a society in which the old and the new came face to face. On September 5, 1908, Buffalo Bill Cody visits the grave of his great friend, Texas Jack Omohundro, who had died 28 years earlier. The photo captures a moment of solemnity and remembrance, showing a man famous for his Old West shows overcome with personal loss. Amid the dust of the cemetery and the silence of the past, one perceives the depth of a friendship that neither fame nor the years could erase. An intimate moment where legend meets memory and human emotion. On April 3, 1945, young Hans-Georg Henke, just 15 years old, cries after being captured by the U.S. Ninth Army in Richtenbach, Hesse. John Florea's photo reveals the vulnerability of adolescence swept up in the horrors of World War II. His face reflects fear, exhaustion, and the weight of a childhood cut short by violence. A heartbreaking portrait that humanizes the ravages of war and shows the true cost to the youngest members of the public. In 1992, Chris McCandless posed in front of the famous Bus 142 near Healy, Alaska, a symbol of his quest for absolute freedom in the wilderness. The image captures the determination and adventurous spirit of a young man who decided to withdraw from society to live alone. Behind his gaze lies curiosity, defiance, and a touch of vulnerability to the unknown, a moment that became iconic, representing both freedom and the risks of life on the edge. In 1889, a portrait captured Mormon polygamists in the Utah Penitentiary, reflecting the tension between federal law and local religious practices. Their gazes and postures convey a mixture of pride, resignation, and defiance of authority. The photo reveals a complex chapter in American history where faith, tradition, and legality directly clashed. A moment that documents the lives and conflicts of those who lived outside the established norm.